Hello, everybody. This is John Browning on the Building Your Life podcast. We are here today with a special guest again, Dr. Melissa Robinson-Winemiller, right? I pronounced
Yeah,
it right. Good.
you did.
All right. And we're going to talk about, first of all, we're going to definitely talk about your book, which is coming out, what, in just a little while. When is it coming out?
I'm told end of this month, beginning of next. So like 4 weeks.
And initially, you do all the work, and then somebody else tells you when it's actually going to be published because they've done all the other stuff, right?
Yeah.
So, and it's the Empathetic Leader, correct?
Yes. Yep. The full title is The Empathic Leader: How EQ via Empathy Transforms Leadership for Better Innovation, Productivity, and Profit. It's
Okay,
kind of a long title.
so yeah, so right away we realize that we're talking with a fairly well-educated individual here on the other side of the podcast. And you have one doctorate already,
Yeah.
and you're well on your way to doctorate number two.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
In fact, I'm into the dissertation stage because my dissertation is going to be on empathy and leadership. So yeah, I'm dug in deep.
Yeah, I would say. So how long has that taken you? This has been a lifetime
This
thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've been studying it for a while, so that helps then when you get to the writing. But the actual coursework and the dissertation is a 3 to 4 year long-term relationship. How's that?
There we go. I like it. I like it. And right now you are in kind of the middle of the country, but you like the coasts, both coasts and all that. And you end up traveling around a little bit, and it looks like you're going to be landlocked for a little bit longer, but you travel all over the place, right? You go where you're
Yes,
needed.
absolutely. I kind of think of this as a calling. So anywhere anybody wants to hear what I have to say and wants to let me help them make things better for their people, I'm there. I'm happy to go.
So safe to say you are, because you love what you do, you're living your best life right now.
Yes,
Yeah.
I absolutely am.
It's not all roses and lollipops and bunny rabbits, but in general, right? None of us have all that all the time, right?
No, Disney princesses aren't real, unfortunately, but I
Unfortunately.
still have to do the dishes. But I'm in a place doing dishes where I want to do them for the most part, so I really can't complain. I'm really happy with it.
Yeah. All right, very good. So what else should the audience here know about you?
Um, as far as my approach to empathy, because it is such a soft subject, and it is kind of like you said, right? Rainbows and puppies and Care Bears and cotton candy. I actually approach it from data analytics and an MBA because this is something that actually it's a soft subject that has hard returns. So even though I'm talking about it, it's not just, you know, something cute and snuggly and fluffy. It's a real thing that can make a real difference, not just with your people, but in your bottom line.
I want to repeat that. It's a soft subject with hard returns, right? Because I imagine, hopefully, we kept them. But for all the scientific folks, we may have lost them at the beginning, because empathy, up, I'm out.
Yeah.
But it's not all about that, right? And the more we begin to realize this, and it took me a while when I was working on Wall Street, it was a lot of, hard hitting work 24/7. We don't really care what your issue is. We just want the returns, those type of things. And what you ended up with, and you still do. We actually just finished a podcast. I guess it's been about a month and a half ago or something like that, with Marielle Dagasan, and she's a very, very young lady, and she was at Goldman Sachs, did very well for herself, and she was like, yeah, I'm out. and now
Yeah.
she's doing her own thing, given everything that she learned on Wall Street, very similar to me, but in a little bit different vein. She's trying to help out those who are just kind of starting out, and is very, to your point, empathetic with uh, either the folks that maybe started and maybe made either a poor decision or something really bad just happened, right? I mean, healthcare issues, car accident, you name it. There are all sorts of things that can happen in your life that we tend to beat ourselves up about. And I
Yeah.
think, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think that's kind of what you talk about as well is being empathetic with yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Because a question I always get is, well, how do I start? Because this isn't something that's natural to me. You get people in these top leadership positions, and they've been trained a certain way. It's exactly like you were saying. You go to business school and you're taught the Gordon Gekko of Wall Street school of business. Greed is good, and go in there and you've got to be the one that's harder, better, faster, stronger. Well, that doesn't necessarily lend itself to empathy. So people get in these high positions, they're very high achievers, they're very driven. You think of Maslow's pyramid, and it's high self-actualizing right up there at the top. And it's because they've never learned to show themselves any self-empathy, which is why these are the same ones that have substance abuse issues, that their families are falling apart. They may not take care of themselves very well, and their inner life has fallen apart. Well, of course, they don't understand how to show empathy to anybody else. They don't know how to do it for themselves. Charity starts at home. You've got to start on the foundation before you can build the house. So,
I love
yeah.
that analogy. I talk about that kind of thing too with a lot of folks are in the sandwich generation. And for those of you who are like, what the heck is he talking about? We're not talking about the Subway sandwich. We're talking about the fact that if you're in your 50s, maybe 60s, something like that, you may have adult children that are needing some assistance, needing some of your help. And you also have aging parents that may also need your help. And you want to be empathetic. You want to be there for everybody, but then you forget about the person that's actually supplying the help, which is you. And if you haven't put on your oxygen mask first, you may just not be there, or you certainly may be in a position then in retirement that you don't have enough money, you don't have enough assets to support yourself in retirement. So
Yeah.
so if you're okay, so this is a great question for somebody with your expertise, very practically. Um, I'm a sandwich generation guy. I've got aging parents on both sides, love them to death. But I'm concerned about them, and they have various sundry different issues that they're trying to deal with and struggle with. I also have adult. I have six
Wow.
adult children. Well, one's turning an adult officially next month, but that's the last one. Then they will all be adult children, and they all need our help in various ways. What's your advice?
I would say that just because you have empathy and you do feel and want to do well, show compassion for the people in your life, that doesn't mean you don't have boundaries. And that's really important because with empathy, you're understanding the way another person's feeling, but you're not falling into that feeling. You're not, so engulfed in it that you're not taking care of yourself. If you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anybody else. The oxygen mask analogy is perfect. I need to be able to take care of myself so that I can take care of other people. And I want to help other people. I'm sandwich generation too. I don't necessarily, have all the kids right now, but I never had kids. My husband did, but that still counts, right?
Yeah, that still
But I
counts.
do,
Yeah.
yeah. But I do have the aging parents, and sometimes it's like if I don't take care of what's happening to me here and now, and take the time, to go get some exercise so that I don't fall apart, and take the time to make sure my finances are taken care of so that I'm not having to, sing for my supper somewhere, and take care of the things that I have to do to be able to be healthy. There's nothing I can do for either one, either up or down. So it's not selfish, it's very practical.
It's very practical. See, I'm married to a nurse.
Ah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's hard to find a nurse who is not empathetic. I think it's a requirement for the job. Although
Yes.
sometimes you can, and you wonder, right? Sometimes when you happen to need a nurse. But I will tell
Yeah.
you, most of the nurses that I know, and certainly the one that I'm married to, really struggles with the idea, like you talk about, the self empathy because we tend to think that's selfish.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, I think that's a really important part to understand, is that you have to have empathy with yourself first. And we tend to go negative, right? It's like that's our default.
Yeah.
And well, we're not good enough, we're not doing enough, or whatever it is. How do you get over that? What's the practical way? How do you get over that?
So empathy, whenever you're dealing with empathy, whether it's for the self or for somebody else, you are getting out of your bubble. Let's start with empathy for somebody else. You are getting out of your bubble and into somebody else's. Now, the trick is you are out of your bubble. So you're not thinking of the me, you're thinking of them, right?
Yep.
So that you're not worrying about other things. You're just feeling what they're feeling. You're not necessarily taking action.
Yep.
You're not taking responsibility for what's going on. You're just understanding the situation. Now, the evil twin to empathy is sympathy. And what happens is with sympathy, we don't get out of our bubble. We stay in it, and the me stays there, which means immediately there's usually a comparison of some kind, which is why you get the judgment. With sympathy, it's always some kind of judgment, and it's subconscious. People don't even realize they're doing it, but it actually has a negative connotation in healthcare because there's a pity component. I feel bad for you, but I'm glad it's not me.
Right.
Oh, but at least you have your health, or the, oh, let me tell you about when that happened to me and it was even worse. That sort of thing. So as soon as that judgment component comes in, then you have a problem, because judgment and empathy cannot exist in the same space ever. They can't. Now, it's
Yeah.
the same thing when we're dealing with self empathy. If you're looking at yourself and you're doing the, oh, I'm not good enough, I haven't worked hard enough, I need to put my head down, immediately you're making a judgment against where you are to where you would like to be.
Hmm.
And as soon as that judgment comes in, you can no longer display empathy to yourself. The judgment's gotta, it's gotta go. It's gotta be okay. Maybe this didn't work out the way I liked, but I did the best I could with the tools I had at this time. So I have no regrets, and now I move on.
The tools that you had, the knowledge that you had at the time, there are things that I know now that, oh man, if I would have just known it then.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
right.
But you don't. That's the reality. You don't know that. My grandsons, they would just they love to explore electrical outlets. And things like all sorts of things that will hurt them. And
Yes.
so we're there to put the guardrails up as grandparents or parents or whatever. And is that the way to this is another interesting thing too. So thinking of real simple terms with your your kid, like a small child, right?
Yeah.
As adults, we don't have experiences. We like to be able to do it ourselves, but we may not have the experience to do it ourselves. How can you, as somebody who has the experience, have the empathy and properly help someone who they're a professional, they don't want to feel dumb,
Yeah.
they want to feel stupid about whatever it is that you're trying to help them with, because you have, say, 20-30 years of experience in this field, and recognize they have 20 or 30 years of experience in their chosen fields. How do you come together? What's the best way, some good practices or tactics, strategies to do that?
Well, one of the best things about empathy, because I'm feeling what you're feeling, is that I understand where you're coming from and I can put myself in your shoes. I may not understand the exact situation, but I know that feeling of, well, geez, why didn't you just get that right? Well, come on, you got all this experience, catch up. Let's go, that kind of thing. And because I understand that, I'm going to try to pad the situation. I don't like to use the word pad, but make it so that it's palatable for both of us. What can I do to actually help you? I don't want to be in your way. So now we're actually communicating with empathy. Just tell me what you need, but I need you to be honest with me so that I can be sure we're getting you exactly what you need. And the nice thing about empathy is if it's done right and both parties are actually trying to do it, Now you've got empathy working both ways. Well, I know that Jeff has 30 years of experience and he's really just trying to help me. So instead of getting bent out of shape when I feel he's being overbearing, maybe I'll just listen to what he has to say, and we can talk about it later, but he's got nothing but good intent. So I need to keep that in mind. He's not here to hurt me. He's here to help me. And now we've got it working in a two-way street.
Right. Yeah, and this could go to any relationship. Yeah, it can go with husband and wife. It can go with kid to parents. It can go with leadership at work. I mean, all the way
Yeah.
around. And maybe that communication with your team at work, saying, hey, we need to go both ways. And I may come across as overbearing as the boss. You might say this, have this actual conversation. Would that, I mean, is that one of those tactics that
Yeah.
can work?
Absolutely, because it shows that you're actually reflecting on what's happening and going, okay, sometimes I can be a little much. I can be a little extra, as my husband would put it, like guacamole, I'm a little extra. But, I appreciate you guys sticking with me, and I'll do the best that I can. You do the best you can. If it gets to be too much, let's talk and just understand that I really have the best of intentions. And then, of course, have the best of intentions, but you know, just say it. You know, Going back to the data analytics, I actually found a statistic that was put out by it's a Grammarly Harris poll, and it's the state of business communication. And every year in the United States, we waste 1.2 trillion with a T dollars in bad communication.
Oh, I can believe
So
that. Yeah.
yeah, but any communication trying to open this up and actually get some empathic communication happening would have to help. I mean, nobody wants to waste that much money and just throw it down the drain over bad communication. The way it worked out was like you end up losing 7.5 hours of productivity every week for each employee. So that'd be like going into the office on Friday and saying, hey, come in for a half an hour for a donut and a cup of coffee. And then everybody can just go off on me, on my dime. Have a great day. Cause I'm just going to have a whole bunch of meetings that could have been an email, you know?
Or a whole bunch of 1 hour meetings that could have been 15-minute meetings.
Exactly. So why waste this? If you know that one of the keys is going to be actually being able to have two-way communication and that empathy is a key to this, what have you got to lose?
Right. No, that is so true. And it's true in my business as well. I own and operate Guardian Rock Wealth. We're independent, but my bosses, and of which I have many, are my clients. And there
Yeah.
are sometimes where I miss it, right? Because likely because I'm not being empathetic enough, because everyone is different. That's one of the things you really learn in my business is what constitutes a catastrophic risk to one person represents another day at the office for another, right?
Yeah.
And the way I liken it to is like, when you're on an airplane and you hit the turbulence, there is no plane in history that has gone down strictly due to turbulence. There's been another issue, right?
Yeah.
But yet some people, that is the scariest thing in the world when that plane starts jumping up and down on them in mid-flight, and that just is very unnerving. It's the same way when I talk to people about the market, and the market sometimes hits these patches where it's up and down and up and down and up and down, and sometimes way down and then back up and whatever. I'm used to that. That doesn't bother me. After 34 years, I feel like I've seen most stuff, and it just doesn't bother me at all. And I have to remember that this is not what everybody else has done for the past 30 years. For
Yeah.
the past 30 years, they've been socking away their nest egg. And when they see it decrease in value, they get very upset and very nervous. And I have to remember that and remember how deeply each one individually feels that. And getting to the why of it, why they feel that way. Maybe they've lost something before and they just were able to gain it back, but it took a lot of hard work to gain it back. Why? Getting to the why of the issue. Do you find that also?
Oh,
Why?
absolutely. There's always so much more going on beneath the surface. Always. There's always a why under there that you probably have no idea about. So, yeah,
I bet you've got
absolutely.
stories. I bet you have. After all the research and study and talking to people, give us I want to hear at least one story from you about something like this. I'm going to make you work here. Think
Oh man.
that.
Well, I don't know if this is strictly financial. Um, but one thing I do find is that when people have a hard time displaying empathy, this can go all the way back to childhood stuff. And I'm not a therapist.
Yeah.
I study social sciences, so it's not like I'm medical at all. I study it, I read about it, but I don't have that credential. So, but sometimes I had one gentleman, and he had a hard time showing empathy. It isn't that he didn't have it, he actually had it very deeply. And when it came to like kitties and puppies and babies, he was in the medical profession. So, when it came to sick people or old people or that kind of thing, he had empathy all over the place. But to actually deal with his bosses and deal with his employees was a whole different matter. And he just couldn't figure out how to tease these two apart. And come to find out, it's because in his childhood, or at least we think this is what was going on, the adults in his life didn't treat him with a lot of empathy. He was expected to be a grown up from a very young age. And of course, being a guy, you don't cry. You're
Right.
not sad. You don't get to show emotion, any emotion. And this had followed him into his career. So he had kind of become this Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde kind of person, where sick people, grandmas, babies, and puppies, yeah, I mean, all day long. His actual employees, whole different person. So it took time to be able to kind of tease this out of him because it was so ingrained, because it went back so far.
Yeah.
So,
I really think I'm learning something here myself, mainly because of helping people have empathy for themselves. I deal with a lot of people who are feeling badly. I mean, I deal with all kinds of, I deal with folks that have had things happen in their lives so that they don't have as much money as they think they should. I deal with people who are high earners and
mhm,
they made like all this money. Here's the deal: if you make $1 million today and you spend $1,001 tomorrow consistently, you're going to be out of money, right? It's just that doesn't work. So no matter how high the earning is, if you have never adjusted the mentality to get to where you need to be, then you're going to end up getting close to retirement saying, wait a second, where'd all the money go?
yeah,
And then you beat yourself up. And I'm very often find myself saying, hey, listen, this is the judgment free zone here on this Zoom call. We're in the judgment free zone. Let's just be problem aware and solution seeking. That's a Bridget Hom quote. She wrote the book Stuck on Ready, and she and I are good friends. And she taught me that phrase, and it's really stuck with me. But the idea of being problem aware, okay, it happened, it's what it is.
yes,
Stop beating yourself up about it and be solution seeking. So, and I know that's one of the phrases that I think I've read um, with you, is that a lot of people talk about empathy and they maybe know what it is, but they don't practice it, right?
yes, yes,
Talk a little bit
absolutely.
more about that. Yeah.
Well, that's very much my thing, because statistically, 95 to 98% of the population has empathy at some level. Babies, newborn babies show, like, if one baby in the room starts crying, they'll all start crying. It's called emotional contagion. And it's kind of like a proto empathy. They're feeling what they're feeling. They're in that moment. So the thing is, for the most part, people don't need to learn empathy. They need to practice empathy. And that means using it to create action. It's the actionability of what you're doing. I talk about it being like a treadmill, that, you could have that person that has the treadmill in the corner of the bedroom, and they use it to like hang clothes on and the cat sleeps on it. But if you don't use it, just having it isn't going to give you any benefit.
Yeah.
If you want the outcome from this treadmill, you have to actually use it, which means practicing, getting on it and using it day after day. And empathy is the same. You have to practice it. Now, the interesting thing is that people think empathy is always like a first aid kit, right? That it's only there when it's like blood and destruction,
Oh, that's
but it's
interesting.
not.
Yeah.
You can use it for good emotion, and that's an easier place to start. When someone's having a good day and they're like, I can't wait to talk to you about this. And you can just enjoy that and be with them in that moment, as opposed to, well, they had all the breaks. They just happened to get lucky. Or, well, that just always works out for them. Because there's that judgment again,
Yeah.
you
Judgment.
know? Yep. And empathy and judgment can exist in the same place. So just start by being in that happy moment with them. That's fantastic. Tell me more. Practice with the easy stuff so that you can work up to the hard stuff. So that then when somebody does have the hard stuff that's going to make you feel uncomfortable because you're feeling it with them, you can still be actionable with it and not flip into sympathy where now you've got judgment.
I can't help but thinking, I hope some of the guys stuck with us on this and they're listening to this because this is what we need, right? When our wives are experiencing a good day, take a
Thank you.
second and be there with them. That's important just as much as, we try and fix everything, right? Oh, you had a bad day? How can I fix it? We mean well, but that's
Yeah.
not what my wife wants. She just wants to tell me what a crappy day she had and,
Yeah.
and feel okay
Exactly.
about it. And then I'm not going to
Yeah.
be in the judgment zone. I'm going to be like, I'm going to have empathy. I'm going to practice empathy, not just have it, practice it.
Right. And people actually get that wrong too, because empathy is just being in that feeling. Brene Brown puts it that you're in the suck together. And that's, not necessarily, but yeah, a lot of times, but there's no action. If you take action on it, like trying to fix it, that's compassion. They're two different things. So empathy, you don't actually have to do anything. You don't have to say anything. You're just there with them. Empathy is feeling, compassion is doing. So guys, yeah, you don't have to fix anything. You can just be in empathy without having to be the hero.
Actually, you will become the hero if you practice empathy and
Yes.
pick your spots in terms of where you practice compassion. I like the delineation between uh, compassion and empathy, right? I think
Yeah.
that's a really important part that you just said. So everybody rewind that or say it again. That was good. These are two separate things.
Yeah. Empathy
Compassion,
is feeling,
yeah,
compassion is doing.
that's a really that's a great thing. I love that you said that. And bringing you back to building your best life, I think what we all tend to do is we beat ourselves up and we say, oh, we should have, we didn't, we couldn't, we can't. Oh man, I hate that.
Yeah.
I can't. I tell my kids, can't, never, could do anything. And they all roll their eyes at me and I pick them up and roll them back. Um, so it's just, we just tend to beat ourselves up. And I hope that when people approach Guardian Rock Wealth, and one of the reasons that I wanted to get away from the big Wall Street, big portfolios, the billionaires, the multi hundred millionaires, is because I wanted people to have the opportunity to come to me with all the experience that I got and that I learned on Wall Street and have me practice empathy, listen, and then hopefully practice some compassion and actually tell them, okay, this is how we pick up. Maybe we're picking up pieces and that's okay. Judgment free zone. Maybe we're taking a fairly good base and we're building what they need onto it. And maybe it's a tax planning thing. Maybe it's we need the money to work harder. Maybe we need to create more cash flow. Maybe we need to create more tax-free cash flow. Whatever it is that we need to get to the next point, it's never too late. I like you think of Colonel Sanders. He started at 65. By 73, he had 600 restaurants, right? You think of
Yeah.
Duncan Hines, the very first product that he created, I believe he did it at like in his 70s.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, so it's like you think about all this stuff and it's not too late.
No,
So you just
no.
need to, I think the first step, you tell me if I'm wrong, the first step is probably empathy,
Self-empathy, starting
self
with yourself.
empathy.
Yep. And exactly like you're talking about. Don't beat yourself up. Don't cast judgment on yourself. Don't put yourself in a hole where I can't because you're overwhelmed with everything that's already happened. I mean, what you're saying is perfect and right on. And I love that you use it in your business, especially a business around money that people can be very, very touchy about money because it's a supercharged
Of course. Yeah.
subject. So yeah, start with the self and then let it go out.
Right. Yeah. I tell people money's a tool. It's a hard, cold instrument that we can use. It can be very useful, but it's just a tool. If you want to live your best life, you need to understand the soft side of things. What is truly, and whenever I say this, I feel like it's maybe a little cheesy, but it's just true, right? What
Yeah.
brings you joy and why? You understand that, you have that empathy, then you've got it going on. Then you
Yeah.
can work with that. But before you have that, you can become just old and bitter and rich and miserable.
Which is no fun at
Which
all,
is
man.
not
I don't want to be
fun.
Scrooge
No.
McDuck.
That's right, exactly. I see that happen all the time though, so
Yeah.
well that
Well,
is
I'm glad that we have someone in finance who has empathy because you're showing that it's possible
it is
and it even
possible
works well.
and works well. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. What else can we talk about for our audience that could maybe help them based on what you know, your experience, your knowledge that can help them maybe have empathy for themselves or maybe have empathy for someone else without trying to fix it? What's like the most important thing we could leave them with today?
Really seriously doing self-reflection. And it's not a woo-woo yoga meditation thing, which I have no problem with that, but that's not what I'm talking about here.
Yeah.
I'm talking about how I teach it is doing actual micro meditations, kind of.
Yeah.
So you're going throughout your day and you take 30 seconds and go, was I in the best spot to be able to do that? Did I handle this meeting well, or did I allow my temper to get a hold of me? When I talked to so and so on the phone, did I actually take into account what they were saying and feeling, or did I just bulldoze over the top of them? And doing that every single, throughout the day, 4 or 5, 7 times, maybe 30 seconds, 3 minutes, but doing it consistently because it's a practice, which if you're going to practice means you have to do it over and over and over and over, probably for the rest of your life.
Mm.
The other thing I tell my people is that this is not a leadership in 4 easy steps kind of thing. This is not a 5 days to super stellar profit. It's just not. I wish it could be, but
Fish.
if you
Yeah.
do it and you do it every day and you do it consistently, consistency is going to be the key. And that's what's going to finally get you the outcome. So, and the other thing is, which is really funny that I've seen people do this as well, especially these high level leaders. If you don't get it first time out of the box, do not beat yourself up about not having empathy. Take time, work on it,
Yeah.
get better. It's a skill. Skills have to be learned and ingrained. So practice it day after day after day, and you'll be amazed what'll happen over time.
Yeah, just this is great conversation. Thanks so much for being on the podcast because this is fantastic. And I think it's not really talked about on many financial shows, right? Because we
Yeah.
tend to focus on the numbers and all that. And I do the same thing. But like when I think of how this all works to your benefit, it's that self-reflection. One of the things that helps me, and I promise I'm not going to preach, I'm not a preacher, but I will say that my faith has really helped me because if you study like the Bible, right, and then you look at David in the Bible, a man after God's own heart, really screwed up. I mean, majorly,
Yeah.
right? You
Yeah.
look at Samson, he screwed up, right? But he was very much used by God. You look at Moses, he kept on saying, I can't, I won't. And yet he was prepared by God to do something amazing, right? So all of this thing, whenever we make mistakes, whenever we maybe don't do something the way we think we should have because we didn't maybe have the knowledge or ability or whatever at a certain time, just maybe understand that maybe you were being prepared by all those experiences to learn something that you can then either use yourself or maybe use to help somebody else. And maybe you can have the ability, because you've been through it before, to have even better empathy for them.
Yes, absolutely. It's not a failure, it's a learning experience,
Right.
whatever it is, you know? And like I also say to my people, I do not expect everybody to suddenly be in nirvana and we're all going to be, highly actualized empaths. It's not going to happen. But go out into your world today and use 2% more empathy than you did yesterday. Just 2%. That's it. Who knows where that's going to lead over time? And don't sweat the small stuff. Don't even sweat the big stuff. It's already done.
It's already done. Yeah, it's history.
Yeah. Yeah. Ancient
History is to
history.
be learned from. Yeah.
Exactly. Precisely. Yes.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, I'm excited. Folks, if you want to get in touch with Dr. Melissa, you should do what? What's the best way to get in touch with you? Where you speak, you got the book coming out. How's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
My website's the easiest, and it is EQ via, that's VIA, empathy. So it's just EQ through the lens of empathy, but I didn't need a website with a name that long. So it's EQ via empathy.
I like it.
And you can find me there. All my social media stuff is there because, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram, and I do actually have a gift there if you leave your email address about the top 5 traits that leaders can use now. So would love to have more in on the conversation all the time.
All right, very good. And folks, if you have listened to the podcast before, you already know how to get in touch with me. My name is John Browning of Guardian Rock Wealth. You reach out to me at guardianrockwealth.com. There's a contact us section there, all kinds of free information. Go out to the YouTube page at sign Guardian Rock Wealth, all sorts of different topics. And I am happy to speak with you no matter where you are in your financial journey. And we will talk to you again in the next podcast. Melissa, thanks again so much for being part of the podcast.
You
We'll
bet.
talk with
It's
you
been
in a
my
few minutes.
pleasure. It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
All right.